Good afternoon. Yes, I'm outside in the afternoon. It rained this morning a little bit. Not a lot, but it definitely cooled down the air. So, back out in the garden again because all of the effort to save my potatoes didn't work. The blight has covered everything. So it all has to come out, has to go out there, and it has to be burned. Woo! Sun just came out and it got like 10 degrees hotter in a second. A few other things that are going to need to come out, new stuff going in. Both of my pear trees didn't make it in the transplanting. They were looking pretty sad to begin with. I don't think they were very healthy. Contacted the company and they said, oh, you had to have called us within 3 days of receiving it. Yeah, like that's going to happen. I mean, seriously? So they obviously went out of their way to make sure that you're not going to be able to return the plant. So I'll have to go with a different company next time. My plum tree and my apricot tree also didn't make it. The other ones did, but now I got to replace a bunch of trees. But we'll just do that in the spring. Got to go look for different companies to be able to do that with and just replace them. So I have some climbing squash plants. I put a little bit of a fencing up with a couple T-posts and basically these vining squash I then attach to the fencing so that they can climb up and stay off the ground. I just found some squash bugs, so I'm gonna have to spray those. I use Castile soap with peppermint oil. Excuse me while I squish some squash bugs. Oh, oh, seriously? Little booger. All right, so I guess today is not just pull out potato day, it's squish squash bugs day. If you don't get on top of them, they will take over and decimate your entire crop in a very, very short amount of time. So it's important to check your squash at least every couple of days, if not every day, and take care of any bugs that you see on the plant right away. If you can do that, you can pretty much eliminate the excessive damage that they cause. You see a few that I've already sprayed yesterday or the day before. I don't remember what day it was, but I already came out here and sprayed it with the Castile peppermint soap. I use 1 ounce of soap in a liter of water. So it's diluted, but it works perfectly. And I found that it's prevented it quite a bit, but they're still coming around. So more care needs to be taken, more spraying needs to be done on these plants. And I found just now, I'm going to show you what the eggs look like, because I found those. So the squash bug eggs are usually on the underside of the leaf. It's not always the case, because I found them on the top side too. And they'll come in little clusters. Some are closer than others. This little bunch is on the front side of the leaf. But mostly they're on the back side. But squash bug hunting is a very frequent event. You gotta come out and do it often. Otherwise, they will take over, because it doesn't take long. If you look at how many eggs are on the squash plant, you'll notice that the amount of offspring that are produced from just a couple of the bugs can take over the whole area very quickly. So it's important to come out and really just keep an eye on everything. Make sure it's not an infestation. What you see, pull off. Any bugs that you see, kill. Eggs, squish the eggs. Get rid of those. And your plants will stay healthier that way. And you'll be able to keep them longer. Now, if you do end up with an infestation and it kills your plant, plant a new one. Because even if you don't get a huge harvest, you'll still get somewhat of a harvest. Zucchini grows very quickly. So if you plant a new plant, within a month you're going to have fruit. So if all else fails, replant. The worst you can do is plant a plant and you get a little bit of a harvest, but it's better than nothing. So always move forward, move on, no matter what hardships come about. Just keep moving on, keep planting. Because the worst thing you can do is just give up. So I have calendula. This was all self-sown. I had them growing around the tomatoes, which were in this area last year. These two beds were peppers and tomatoes. I had calendula growing around all of the tomato plants in order to keep some of the pests away for that, because they're a type of marigold. And I just let them go to seed. They self-seeded. And now I have a ton of seeds that I'm going to start harvesting and putting in bags so that I can keep them for next year. A lot of these have gone to seed already, and then some new ones are blooming. So I'm going to come through and clear out all of the seeds so that I can reduce a little bit of the self-sowing for next year, but be able to grow new ones for next year in different locations. Because I definitely like the calendula. It brings a nice color. The foliage is really pretty. It stays really nice and dark green, and I like the contrast of that. So I'll definitely save some of the seeds of this and plant them in different locations. And because the seeds now have memory from the parent plant, they will be better adapted to our environment and be able to grow better in this environment because the parent plant is now adapted to that. And while I'm here, I'm going to grab these squash bug eggs and kill those since I'm right here and they're right here. What a bunch of pests. See, they've already killed some of the leaves. This plant is not really that healthy anyway. I didn't know this one in particular was a vining one. So I should have placed it in a different location with some fencing so it could vine up, but I didn't know it was a vining one. This is the first time I've grown this particular style. So now that I know, I will be able to do that for next year. I'll make notes in my garden book. But goodness, there's lots of eggs. Normally I just pull the leaf off and go burn it, but there's a lot of leaves covered. So I'm gonna have to do a lot of work here. On this vine, I have a nice growing spaghetti squash. This is one of Wes's favorites. So he's going to be really excited about me growing this one here. But I have a couple fruit already growing on this vine here. This is probably the biggest one of the whole plant. And I'm going to try a different recipe and make sure he knows in advance that it's not really spaghetti, because I think that was what upset him the most, is I told him that I'm making spaghetti. And it wasn't really spaghetti. And I think the deception of the new recipe is where he had the most trouble. All right, I'm gonna go down here and kill some more of these eggs I see. The biggest trouble with an organic garden is the pests. But you need pests in order to encourage the beneficial insects into your garden. So without aphids, you have no food for ladybugs. I'm not sure what squash bugs do, but look at these pathetic pepper plants. Yeah. This is the kind of damage that happens when you plant them out too soon. So these I planted out in June because last year I planted late May and we ended up having a late frost, which was unusual. It usually doesn't happen. Our last frost date is about May 8th, and I planted last year, it was in the 20s, somewhere like 22, 23 May. I planted out my pepper plants and they got stunted from the cold weather. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna take extra precaution. I'm not gonna plant them out until June. So beginning of June, planted out my pepper plants and we got a cold snap. So these are my poor little stunted pepper plants that are just short as can be. Lovely. But I do have some peppers growing. So right there are some peppers. So while the plants are totally stunted, they are still starting to produce. I have blossoms over here. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll get some peppers soon. I mean, we definitely have blossoms, but it doesn't look like a whole lot of fruit yet. The tomatoes, poor things. I'm not sure what happened with this one right here, but obviously it doesn't like where it's at. It died. The one right next to it is doing fine. So, don't know. And you can see I am getting fruit. Nice big fruit. Still green. Everything is definitely still green. A little bit of damage going on right there. But nice growth. During this heat, they're really having a hard time. It's been 105 for about a week now, and they decided to just kind of stop doing everything that they were doing and wait. These are all my paste tomatoes. I'm hoping to have enough. And that one's pretty stunted as well, but it is producing fruit. So my cherry tomatoes and my pear tomatoes are all right here in the center. They are a determinate variety, so because I cut them the way that I did, I'm not going to get much of a harvest on any of those. But I didn't want them taking up the whole space with a lot of growth, so I sacrificed fruit for space. And that's just something you have to either decide to do or not do. Each person, depending on their space, does what they have to do. I still haven't pulled out any of the peas from this center bed, but I'll do that within the next couple days and get that cleared out. But I do have 514 starts going, so seeds have been planted. I'm just waiting for them to start sprouting, hopefully very soon. I have all of those starts inside the greenhouse, so let's take a look at how we got those going. Welcome to the greenhouse. It's a jungle in here. That's okay, I'm good with that. So I did the soil blocks this year just to see how it goes. Those back there look a little bit dry, so I definitely need to water them. And then these trays up here, I just used the traditional seed starting trays. So we'll see how they do compared to the soil blocks. And then I'll just have to make a decision on whether I want to continue the soil blocks or if I want to continue with the seed trays. The seed trays are much smaller wells, so when I go to start all my seeds, I know I'm going to have to up pot very quickly, actually. So I'm going to turn the misters on real quick. It's not very hot today, but it's definitely starting to warm up, so got to watch the temp. This here is leaf basil. It didn't get as big as I thought it was going to get, so I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for just yet. I'll taste it and see what I like about it and see if there's something that it'll work really good with. This is my Malabar spinach, and it has reseeded in the greenhouse every year. I've not had to plant any more since I grew the first few plants. But most of my banana plants, there's one banana plant that doesn't have it, but most of them have self-sown Malabar spinach in it. This one does not. So I'm not short on Malabar spinach, that's for sure. And this is my Japanese knotweed. The root is medicinal. Unfortunately, the root is also very invasive, so I grow it in a pot and make sure that it does not spread. Such a sad day. All 4 potato beds infested with blight. All of them had to come up, but I am able to salvage the potatoes. And next year I will take extra precaution from the very beginning, and every 7 days after that, using a copper spray, I can prevent blight next year. But that doesn't help this year with an entire 4 foot by 16 foot times 4 potato patch devastated. So if this was my only food source, if there was no ability to go find potatoes elsewhere, this would be really, really bad. So at least I have other stuff growing. On a more positive note, I have more strawberries growing. That's a real strawberry. That's a real strawberry. That's a fake strawberry. But we do have strawberries again. Yay! The heat has been very tough on the strawberry patches. They've been kind of struggling. I've been doing a little extra watering just to keep them going, but they're starting to recover, starting to do much better. I do have 4 beds, 2 of which are ever bearing and 2 of which are June bearing, and the 2 down there are doing great. These 2 here are a little more sparse, but they're really starting to take off again. So as the temperature starts cooling back down again into the lower 90s, I'm going to see a huge increase in plant production with the strawberries. So that'll be really good. But I'm going to leave digging up the potatoes for another day. I believe I have a farm helper coming out tomorrow, so we're going to be pulling a lot of weeds. We're going to be cutting down a lot of stuff on the other side of that bed there, because there's just a lot of weeds over there and I want to get rid of them. So for now, I will say happy gardening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.